John was a regular guy living in a small town where nothing exciting ever happened. One Saturday afternoon, he was heading back to his car after a routine grocery shopping trip when he noticed something odd. An abandoned shopping cart stood alone in the middle of the parking lot. It wasn't just any cart. It was sleek, metallic, and had a futuristic design that seemed out of place. Curiosity got the better of him, and he approached the cart. As he got closer, he noticed that it wasn't from any store he knew. The cart had a smooth, almost seamless surface with blue LED lights lining its edges. John reached out to touch it, and the moment his fingers made contact, he felt a strange jolt of energy course through his body. "Ow!" he yelped, pulling his hand back. As he did, he saw brief flashes of another world. Cities made of glass, strange creatures walking alongside humans, and advanced technology everywhere. The vision lasted only a few seconds, but it left John breathless. "What the hell was that?" he muttered to himself, looking around to see if anyone else had noticed. But the parking lot was nearly empty, and no one seemed to be paying attention. The cart then did something even stranger. It started to follow him. John took a few steps back, and the cart rolled forward. He stopped, and so did the cart. "This is getting weird," he said aloud, half expecting someone to jump out and tell him he was on a prank show. But no one came. Against his better judgment, John decided to take the cart home. Maybe he could figure out what was going on. As he walked, the cart followed him obediently, stopping whenever he stopped and turning whenever he turned. It was as if it had a mind of its own. Once home, he wheeled the cart into his garage and shut the door behind him. He stood there for a moment, staring at the cart, wondering what to do next. "All right, let's see what you are," he said, more to himself than to the cart. He reached out cautiously and touched it again. This time there was no shock, but the cart began to hum softly, and a small panel slid open on its side, revealing a holographic display. John's eyes widened as the hologram came to life, projecting an image of a tiny, robotic figure. The figure looked at John and began to speak in a clear, mechanical voice. "Greetings, human. I am C.A.R.T, a cognitive automated retail transporter from the planet Zyron. I have been displaced and require assistance to return to my world." John blinked in surprise. You're a talking shopping cart?" C.A.R.T tilted its holographic head. "Correct, and I need your help to get back home." John rubbed his temples, trying to wrap his head around what was happening. "This is crazy. How am I supposed to help you get back to your planet?" The hologram flickered for a moment before stabilizing. "I have data and instructions that can guide us to a portal capable of interdimensional travel. However, I will need your cooperation and assistance to navigate this world." John sighed, realizing he was in for an adventure whether he liked it or not. "All right, C.A.R.T, he said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Let's figure this out together." John couldn't believe he was about to embark on an adventure with a talking shopping cart. After the initial shock wore off, he found himself oddly excited about the whole thing. The next morning, John and C.A.R.T were in his garage, which had quickly become their base of operations. John had set up his laptop on a workbench, trying to understand the data C.A.R.T was providing. "Okay, so you're saying there's a portal nearby that can take you back to your planet?" John asked, still skeptical. "Correct," C.A.R.T replied. Its holographic display showed a map of the town with a blinking dot indicating the portal's location. "The portal is not far from here. However, it is heavily guarded." "Guarded by who?" John asked, leaning closer to the display. "An organization that monitors interdimensional activity," C.A.R.T explained. "They are aware of my presence and will attempt to capture me if they find us." John frowned. "Great. So not only do we have to find this portal, but we also have to avoid getting caught. This just keeps getting better." C.A.R.T projected a reassuring image. "Do not worry, John. With your help, we can outsmart them." John laughed. You're pretty optimistic for a shopping cart. They spent the rest of the day planning their route and preparing for the journey. John gathered supplies, food, water, and a few tools he thought might come in handy. C.A.R.T. showed John how to activate its various features, including a cloaking mechanism that could temporarily make them invisible. As night fell, they set out, deciding it was safer to travel under the cover of darkness. John led the way, with C.A.R.T. following silently behind him. They stuck to back alleys and quiet streets, avoiding any areas with heavy foot traffic. They were about halfway to their destination when they heard footsteps behind them. John glanced back and saw a group of men in dark suits and sunglasses. They looked out of place in the quiet suburban neighborhood. C.A.R.T., I think we've got company, John whispered. C.A.R.T.'s hologram flickered. Activate the cloaking device. John quickly pressed a button on the cart, and they vanished from sight. They moved quietly to the side, watching as the men passed by, clearly searching for something. "Who are these guys?" John asked once the men were out of earshot. "They are part of the organization I mentioned," C.A.R.T. replied. "We must be cautious." They continued their journey, more carefully this time. Eventually, they reached the location marked on the map, a large, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. "This is it," C.A.R.T. said as they approached the building. "The portal is inside." John looked around nervously. "Are you sure this is safe?" C.A.R.T. emitted a calming hum. "I will ensure our safety. Let's proceed." They entered the warehouse, finding it empty and dark. C.A.R.T.'s holographic display lit up, guiding them to a hidden door at the back of the building. Behind the door was a small room with a strange, glowing device in the center. "This is the portal," C.A.R.T. explained. "I need to activate it to return to Zyron." John watched as C.A.R.T. interfaced with the device, its lights flickering as it powered up the portal. Suddenly, the door to the room burst open, and the men in suits stormed in, weapons drawn. "Stop right there!" one of them shouted. John's heart pounded. "C.A.R.T., hurry up!" The portal began to hum loudly as it activated. C.A.R.T.'s hologram turned to John. "Thank you for your help, John. Step back, and I will handle this." Before John could react, a bright light filled the room, and C.A.R.T. rolled towards the portal. The men in suits fired their weapons, but it was too late. The portal engulfed C.A.R.T., and with a blinding flash, both the cart and the portal disappeared. John stood there, stunned, as the men in suits lowered their weapons. One of them approached him, looking frustrated. "You have no idea what you've done," the man said, glaring at John. But John did know. He had just helped a talking shopping cart return to its home planet. And although he didn't have all the answers, he felt a strange sense of accomplishment and relief. John found himself alone in the abandoned warehouse, the echoes of the confrontation still ringing in his ears. The men in suits, clearly frustrated, began questioning him. "Who are you working for?" the leader demanded, his eyes narrowed. John shook his head. "I'm just a guy who found a shopping cart. I didn't know it was some kind of alien tech." The man sighed, clearly not satisfied with the answer, but unwilling to waste more time. "You need to come with us. We have questions, and you're going to answer them." Before John could protest, they grabbed him, and within minutes, he was in the back of a black SUV being driven to an unknown location. He couldn't help but feel a pang of guilt. He had helped C.A.R.T. escape, but now he was in serious trouble. Hours later, they arrived at a nondescript government building. John was escorted inside and brought to a sterile interrogation room. He sat there, fidgeting, until the door opened, and a stern-looking woman entered, carrying a folder. "Mr. Smith," she began, sitting across from him, "I'm Agent Reynolds. We need to understand everything you know about the entity you helped escape." John took a deep breath and recounted everything. the discovery of the cart, the visions, and the journey to the warehouse. Agent Reynolds listened intently, taking notes. After he finished, she leaned back, scrutinizing him. "You've stumbled upon something far beyond your understanding, Mr. Smith. That cart was an advanced piece of technology from another dimension, and its disappearance poses a significant risk." John frowned. "Risk? How so?" Agent Reynolds sighed. "When interdimensional technology like C.A.R.T. interacts with our world, it can create ripples, unpredictable changes in our reality. We need to locate the portal it used and ensure it remains closed." John was stunned. "So, what happens to me now?" She stood up. "For now, you're coming with us. Your involvement means you might have more knowledge than you realize, and we can't risk letting you go." Days turned into weeks as John remained under surveillance, helping the agents piece together the mystery. He learned more about the organization, known as the Interdimensional Monitoring Agency, IMA, and their mission to protect Earth from otherworldly threats. Meanwhile, John couldn't stop thinking about C.A.R.T. He had developed an unexpected bond with the little cart and worried about its safety. Despite the situation, he held on to the hope that C.A.R.T. had made it back home safely. One night, as John lay in his room, he heard a familiar hum. He sat up and saw a faint blue light emanating from the corner. To his astonishment, C.A.R.T.'s holographic image appeared. "C.A.R.T.?" John whispered, his heart racing. "Greetings, John. I have returned to ensure your safety. I am transmitting this message from my world," C.A.R.T. explained. "I have discovered a way to permanently seal the portal, but I need your help one last time." John nodded, a sense of purpose reigniting within him. "What do I need to do?" C.A.R.T. provided instructions, detailing a plan that involved accessing the mainframe of the IMA to upload a code that would close the portal for good. John knew it was risky, but he was determined to see it through. The next day, John managed to slip away from his guards, following C.A.R.T.'s directions to a secure server room. He used his newfound knowledge of the IMA's operations to bypass security, reaching the mainframe undetected. With trembling hands, he inserted a flash drive C.A.R.T. had provided into the computer. The screen filled with lines of code as the upload began. Moments later, an alert sounded, and John knew his time was running out. He quickly finished the upload and made his way out, just as alarms started blaring. As he exited the building, he saw Agent Reynolds and her team rushing towards him. "John, what have you done?" she shouted. John smiled faintly. "I did what needed to be done." Before they could apprehend him, a bright light enveloped John, and he found himself standing in an open field. C.A.R.T.'s hologram appeared beside him. "You did it, John. The portal is closed," C.A.R.T. said. John looked around, realizing he was free. "Thank you, C.A.R.T., but what now?" C.A.R.T. hummed softly. "Your world is safe. Live your life, John. You've done more than you know." With that, C.A.R.T.'s image faded, leaving John alone but at peace. He had saved his world and helped a friend return home. It was more than he had ever expected from a simple shopping trip. The days following the portal's closure were a blur for John. After his daring escape from the IMA building, he found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, expecting them to come after him. But as time passed and no one showed up at his door, he began to relax. It seemed the IMA had decided to let him be. One evening, as John was walking through the park near his home, he felt a strange sense of déjà vu. The hum of C.A.R.T.'s hologram, the mission to close the portal, it all seemed like a distant dream. He sat on a bench, staring at the sunset, lost in thought. Suddenly, a familiar hum filled the air. John turned quickly, half expecting to see C.A.R.T. materialize beside him. Instead, a small drone hovered in front of him, projecting a holographic message. "John, The voice of Agent Reynolds came through. "We need to talk." John sighed and nodded, following the drone to a secluded area of the park. There, Agent Reynolds and a few other agents waited. She approached him with a guarded expression. "I'm not here to arrest you, John," she began. "In fact, we owe you a debt of gratitude. You closed the portal and prevented a potential disaster." John crossed his arms, skeptical. "Then why are you here?" Agent Reynolds took a deep breath. "We need your help again. Your experience with C.A.R.T. and the portal has made you invaluable. We've discovered traces of other portals, smaller ones, but just as dangerous. We want you to join us, to help us monitor and manage these anomalies." John was taken aback. "You want me to join the IMA?" She nodded. "You have a unique perspective and a connection to interdimensional technology that we lack. With your help, we can protect our world more effectively." John considered her offer. The thought of more adventures, of preventing potential threats, was tempting. But he also remembered the stress and danger he had faced. "I'll need some time to think about it," he finally said. Agent Reynolds smiled. "Of course. Take all the time you need. But remember, you've already made a difference once. You could do it again." With that, she handed him a card with her contact information and walked away, leaving John alone with his thoughts. Weeks passed, and John's life slowly returned to normal. He went back to work, spent time with friends, and tried to put the whole ordeal behind him. But he couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant for something more. One night, as he lay in bed, he heard the familiar hum again. He looked around, half expecting to see another drone. Instead, his laptop on the desk across the room flickered to life. C.A.R.T's holographic image appeared on the screen. "John, I've detected new anomalies in your world. Smaller portals are beginning to form. I believe the IMA is correct in seeking your help." John sat up, rubbing his eyes. "C.A.R.T., you're back?" "Only in this capacity," C.A.R.T. replied. "My world remains safe, but I've kept a connection to yours. The IMA needs you, and I believe you are up to the task." John sighed, a mix of emotions swirling within him. "I thought I could go back to a normal life." "Normalcy is subjective," C.A.R.T. said. "You have a chance to protect your world and prevent potential disasters. That is a noble path." John nodded slowly. "You're right. I can't just ignore this." The next day, John called Agent Reynolds and accepted her offer. He officially joined the IMA, starting his training and learning more about interdimensional threats. His bond with C.A.R.T. remained strong, with the C.A.R.T's holographic presence guiding him whenever needed. As John embarked on his new career, he found himself part of a team dedicated to safeguarding Earth. The work was challenging and dangerous, but John felt fulfilled. He had found his purpose, one that combined his ordinary life with extraordinary adventures. And so, the once regular guy from a small town became a key player in an ongoing battle to protect his world, proving that sometimes the most unlikely heroes come from the